All right. Hello, everybody. This is Howard Tuski welcoming you once again to the Winning Digital Customers Show. Today, we are going to talk about 5 ways that you too can fail at digital transformation. I am what you might call an expert at failing at digital transformation. Now, you might ask, Howard, how did you become such an expert at failing at digital transformation? Well, 2 ways. First of all, early in my career, I was involved in a number of digital transformations that did not go well. Probably most famously, and as I discuss in my book, Winning Digital Customers, I was brought in as a consultant at Blockbuster. This is more than 20 years ago, I think, during just past their height, to work on the vision and the transformation for Blockbuster to secure their preeminence as the leading provider of entertainment to America in the 21st century beyond. Well, needless to say, that was not a successful digital transformation, and there's all kinds of reasons why. And I've discussed them in some length in my book, Winning Digital Customers. I will talk a little bit more about them probably during today's session as some examples, but I'll talk about many others as well. But now you might want to ask yourself, why would I want to know how to fail at digital transformation if that is not your actual goal, which I'm guessing it is not? Well, one reason is because the best way to succeed at digital transformation is really just to do 2 things: to start towards digital transformation, and then don't fail. Don't fail. Because if you don't fail, there's only one other option, which is to succeed, right? And in fact, it makes me think, I told you that there were 2 ways that I became an expert at digital transformation. And then I was about to cheat you because I was only going to tell you one of the ways, which was, of course, my involvement early on, many years ago, in a number of failed digital transformations. But the second way that I have become such an expert at how to fail at digital transformation is that now, at this point in my career, I am often brought in by companies who are having problematic digital transformations, and I've become something of a digital transformation doctor. And to understand if a digital transformation is not succeeding, what's the problem, what's holding it back, and what can be done about it? How do you set it right? And so, just like a doctor, I've come to learn that there are a number of different root causes. If you go to a doctor with a headache, what could be causing it? Well, maybe you got hit on the head, maybe you're dehydrated, maybe you have some other kind of disorder. There are a variety of things that can cause a headache. Well, similarly, there are a variety of things that can cause digital transformation to fail. And so obviously we want to know what they are. In my role as a digital transformation doctor, I use them from a diagnostic perspective. But just like any doctor would really prefer that you just not get sick in the first place. I mean, I suppose that's bad for business if you're a doctor, but hopefully most doctors would still prefer that you not get sick. So similarly, I would prefer that your digital transformation not hit the rocks and need to bring in someone like me to fix it, but rather be successful to begin with. So naturally, anytime you want to be successful at something, it's always good to know what are some of the problems, what are some of the potholes along the way. And if you know what they are, hopefully you can figure out how to avoid them. Or if you start to get sucked into some of them, at least you recognize them for what they are and perhaps have some ideas about how to get out of them. And I always tell anybody who ever calls me and says that they have a failed digital transformation, I always say, well, have you stopped? And they say, no, we're continuing to do this and that, but it's not succeeding. And I always remind them, well, then you haven't failed. You haven't failed because you've just not yet succeeded. But because there's basically 3 things you can do with digital transformation. You can be a failure, you can be a success, or you can be trying to be a success. And so as long as you're still trying to be a success, even if you've encountered obstacles, even if you have not met your goals, even if you have challenges that you're not sure how to solve, you still haven't failed. Blockbuster has failed. There's no question. But that's not necessarily the case for a company that's just struggling. And so if you're struggling, these may be some of the reasons why you're struggling. And if you're just beginning, well, then you have a nice, clean, new jar of peanut butter to start from and hopefully avoid these problems that I'm going to talk about. But before I get into the 5 ways to fail at digital transformation, I just want to point out that you really can't ever be a success unless you know what success means. So the first thing I would say, and this doesn't count, by the way, is one of my 5 ways. I'm going to give you 5 ways. This is like a pre-way. But you can't ever be successful if you don't know what success means. What is the gauge of success? When you play football, you know what success is, right? You get that football into the end zone and you get points, right? You get to the end of the game, you have more points than your opponent, you win the game. That is success. It's clear. You want to make sure that your digital transformation isn't just this sort of nebulous goal to get more digital all the time. You want to make sure that there's some opportunities to declare victory. So you yourself and your team and your board and whoever's funding it can say, oh, great, this has been successful. Now, of course, in a sense, digital transformation never ends. So you could argue that there's always another goalpost. But nevertheless, it's very important to be able to say our goal in the next, whatever it is, 18 months, 3 years, is to get to this point, this percentage of our transactions being done digitally, or this level of customer satisfaction in our digital channels, or to whatever it may be, right? And again, one of the work that I do is very often helping companies set KPIs and define goals. I realize it's not necessarily always obvious and easy, but that's a key part of being able to be successful, is to be able to make sure that you're clear on what success means. Okay, so let's dive in. 5 ways to fail at digital transformation. And in honor of David Letterman, I'm going to do this in reverse order. Of course, I know David Letterman famously did a top 10 list, but you guys don't want to listen to 10 ways to fail at digital transformation. That would just be downright depressing. So 5 ways seems like just enough. And so we'll talk. So bottom line is we will start with number 5. The number 5 way to fail at digital transformation is technology first. To say our digital transformation is to migrate to the new version of SAP, or nothing against SAP, great platform, but if you define digital transformation as simply a technology transformation, you will fail, because technology in and of itself is of no value. Did I just say that? Technology in and of itself is of no value. It's only of value when applied to some sort of business purpose. And I think most technologists would probably agree with me on that. And if you don't have a digital transformation vision of what you're going to accomplish, simply creating a giant, data mart that has all the data of your entire organization, or simply migrating to a new, a new shiny system, or I'll tell you a quick story. I was being interviewed for, I think it was a guest blog post or something for, I won't say the name of the company, but for a very, very large, one of the largest technology companies in the world asked me to do a guest blog post for them. And I said to them, so sure, I'll write your blog post. And they said, well, actually, the way we do our guest blog posts is we have someone interview you and then we write your guest blog post. And I was like, okay, I write like 3 blog posts a week. I don't mind writing a blog post. I can write a blog post. They're like, no. We have an agency. They're going to talk to you. They're going to interview you, and they're going to write the post. I'm like, okay, whatever. Sounds good. Less work for me. So these very nice people called me up from the agency of this big technology company, and they interviewed me. But I remember I became scared because they wanted me to talk about digital transformation. And one of the very first questions that they said to me is that, what do I think is most important for digital transformation, AKA cloud migration? And I was like, wait, what? I'm like, in other words, you think that digital transformation means the same thing as cloud migration? Now, of course, this was a company that was in large part trying to persuade people to move their major technology operations to the cloud. So, and this was, of course, not even the company I was talking to. This was the company's agency. So I'm certainly not suggesting that this is necessarily the opinion of the entire company, but it just shows you the trap, right? The trap of thinking that the digital transformation is really about a technology solution. It's not. Digital transformation is about envisioning a new way of creating value for your customer, or a shifted or adapted way of creating value for your customer. And once you've envisioned that, of course, it's going to almost certainly be enabled by technology, and you may need massive technology investments in order to deliver on it. But let's not let the tail wag the dog here. It's about transforming the customer experience, or the employee experience, or the supplier experience, but it's about changing the way business is done, hopefully to make it a better, more differentiated experience, and possibly to make it one that is at lower cost as well. or a combination. And therefore, perhaps you can create even more value for your customers by giving them even more and charging them even less, and yet still making a larger profit, or some combination of those things. So remember that it needs to be business-led, it needs to be customer-led, not technology first. That's the number 5 way to fail digital transformation, is to think of it as a technology program. Let's move on. Number 4, the number 4 way to fail at digital transformation: focus only on digital touch points. So it's good to redo your app, make the app much better. It's great to improve the website. It's great to create a chatbot. It's great to look at augmented reality or virtual reality or kiosks or an Alexa skill, or any one of the wide range of opportunities we have, social media, to use digital touch points as a way to connect with the customer. That is absolutely critical. But, my book is called Winning Digital Customers, and it's based on the idea that people today are increasingly living a lifestyle with digital at the center. But that doesn't mean that digital is the entirety of their life. You need to make sure that you're thinking about digital transformation as a way of creating a better overall customer journey, not just better digital touch points. So that can mean several things. First of all, it can mean that if I walk into a store and I speak to an associate in that store and I have a great interaction and that gives me a positive brand experience, can that be powered by digital transformation? Absolutely. It can be powered by CRM, the kinds of knowledge and insights that associate is being given, the kind of training and how we motivate that person through better digital tools. There's all kinds of things digital can do to make that person-to-person interaction better. As I mentioned earlier, there's all kinds of things that we can do to use digital to reduce the cost, possibly change our whole business model in a way that allows us to simply give more to the customer and charge them less, making ourselves more differentiated. Furthermore, there's times when we need to manipulate or modify a physical experience to be more effective for customers who are living a digital lifestyle. And an example that I've talked about on this show before is how Taco Bell and other quick service restaurants are redesigning their drive-thrus to accommodate customers who've ordered in the app. So that if I go to a Taco Bell that's been remodeled, there may be one drive-through lane that's more traditional for the person who wants to pull up and order their food, but another drive-through lane for people who've already ordered their food and been already texted that it's ready, and they're just driving through to essentially pick up an order. And obviously that takes less time. So you don't want to put that person in line behind someone who's sitting there going, gee, I don't know, what's the difference between a taco and a tostada? You don't want to be behind that person when your order is ready. The tostada is flat. It's just like a big circle with the stuff on top, and the taco is, it's bent, right? Don't try to bend the tostado into the taco, though. It'll just crack. Believe me, I've tried it. It doesn't work. You gotta get that order right to begin with. Anyway, so be sure, of course, focus on the digital touch points, but don't only focus on the digital touch points. I'm going to take 1 second and turn my fireplace off because it's back. Sorry about that. My fireplace is digital. It has a remote control, but it is actual fire. So if it gets too hot in here, you don't want to see me sweat all over my keyboard. Okay, so that was number 4. Time to move on. Number 3. The number 3 way to fail at digital transformation is lose the resistance to change game. So first of all, digital transformation inevitably means change, because transformation essentially means change. And anytime you're driving significant change within an organization, you're going to face resistance. This is another topic I talk about in great length in my book. So just, if you don't believe me, read the book. But just for the moment, take my word for it. There will be people who have many different reasons. Just some people just don't like change. Some people are afraid it's going to cost, they're going to be out of a job. Some people think it won't position them well for, they'll wind up with their empire within the company being made smaller. Some people think it'll be a hassle. There's all kinds of reasons why people are resistant to something that's going to mean significant change for the company. And so you can expect them to resist you every step of the way. You can expect them to resist. They may not resist the idea of any kind of change or improvement, like a little cosmetic change, a little token change may be acceptable because it keeps most things the same, but makes it look like things are changing. But if they start to sense like this is really going to be the level of dramatic change that frankly is going to be necessary for your company to continue to be successful, they're going to resist. They're going to resist the initial funding. They're going to probably nitpick and try to point out problems along the way. They're going to try to get your projects killed or diminished at every step of the way. These saboteurs of digital transformation. We did a whole other live cast on how to sabotage digital transformation, where we talked about many of the techniques that these folks will use. But the bottom line is, one of the ways to fail is to simply lose the resistance to change game. This is what happened at Blockbuster. I came in, and just not myself, but the whole team of us, to develop that vision of the future. And I have to say, I think it was the right vision. I still think to this day it was the right vision. There were many characteristics of it that look like what Netflix looks like today. And I won't go into the details of it, but suffice to say, the problem was probably not we had the wrong vision, but man, did we face resistance. And, you know, the problem there really at its heart, and there were many problems, but not to oversimplify, but this was a company that really saw itself as a retail store business. The people who ran the company, they were retail store people. Like, they'd spent 30 years, like they came from Bloomingdale's, or they came from, you know, some other big company that was like a big retail store. They had thousands and thousands of retail stores, leases. They had a huge department that just managed all their leases and all their physical properties. And they were really committed to being a retail store company. So when a vision comes along that says, hey, we can move away from this, right? We can deliver things right to people's homes. You know, if that's just a teeny tiny experiment, if that's 1% of our business, but 99% is still retail stores, then everyone's like, yeah, sure, whatever, that's cool. We're still the king of retail stores. But when they start to see a vision that could actually be pushing the company in a direction where 5 or 10 years later, they might not need retail stores, or they may need only a tiny fraction, these people do not want that future, because they think to themselves, well, what, they don't might not say it this way, what's my role in that, right? You won't need me anymore, a 30 plus retail store veteran. So at Blockbuster, a big part of what happened there was people who just believe that, you know what, yes, we have problems in the business, but we need a better retail store operation. We need like better promotions in the stores. We need to remodel the stores. We need different layouts of the stores. It all focused on the stores, or the vast majority, and that led to the failure of their digital transformation, and of course, ultimately, the failure of their company. So that was number 3. Let's move on. The number two top reason that digital transformations fail. Oops, what happened here? Oh, sorry about that. Hang on one second. There we go. Give up when predictability is low. That's number 2. As I said to you earlier, you don't really fail until you give up or go out of business, as happened with Blockbuster, right? I guess that's the other way to fail, right? You can try and try and try, and eventually there's no more money and you're out of business. That's another way to fail. So I stand corrected. But in any case, but the more common way to fail at digital transformation is to encounter problems, encounter obstacles, and just say, you know what, I guess it's not working. And, you know, it might not be that anyone says, we are going to give up on ever becoming more digital, but the initiatives that you're behind, whether it's, you know, a new customer experience, or a technology change to support it, or creating more personalization, or whatever you might have envisioned, at a certain point you hit technical problems, or you hit resistance, or, you know, your first version out of the gate, customers don't seem to like it. And by the way, again, you know, I talk at great length on other of these show episodes about how you can reduce some of those risks. So there's many things you can do to reduce and increase the predictability. But nevertheless, the predictability will never be, customer research, for example, being a key component. But here we're just talking about how to fail. And a key way to fail is to simply give up when it's just not going well. And as I said earlier, you really haven't failed until you give up. It might sometimes feel like you failed, and giving up is just, well, what else can I do? But that's rarely true. In fact, what you need is perseverance. Because if you look at the companies that are successful companies today, they've all had, whether they're traditional kind of pre-digital companies that are doing well in a digital world, or whether they're companies who are more pure play digital born companies like, you know, Facebook and Google and Amazon, they've all encountered moments of great struggle. Of course, everyone knows of Apple's struggles, and they almost went out of business. You know, Google spent early years without a revenue model and facing legal challenges. Uber's faced all kinds of legal challenges. You know, Airbnb spent years unsuccessful. It took years and years. The founders were living like on borrowed sofas, and like they had nowhere to live, and they were living as paupers for a number of years while they tried to figure out how to make that business successful. So it's rarely a story of instant success when you create digital innovation, and know that that's a part of the process. that can help you inoculate yourself against this risk number 2, because if you know that you are likely to hit problems, then you're less likely to be discouraged when you do. But in any case, I want to strongly encourage you to make sure that you don't fail by simply giving up when times get tough. And sorry about my flipping through slides here. And the number 1 reason that companies fail at digital transformation is they don't listen to customers. Now, let me be clear. What I mean by that is they don't drive the vision and the decision-making enough based on customer needs. It doesn't necessarily mean that they ask their customers, what features do I need on our website? How do I improve the app? And they ask their customers to be the source of ideas and creative visioning, and then they just do what the customers say. That is also not a path to success. The path to success is to engage in activities whereby you really come to understand your customer and their points of pain. What are they challenged by? What's holding them back from accomplishing what they want? What about your brand or your products is not meeting their needs? What about other brands and products are not meeting their needs that you may be able to fill and therefore competitively differentiate? Figure that out through researching them and understanding them, which includes listening, but it doesn't necessarily mean what you're listening to is the idea for the improvement. What you're listening to may be more about the problem than the solution. And then you use your own teams and ideation processes and prototyping and other things to come up with a solution. And then you should be going back to customers through things like user testing of prototypes, for example, of new digital products, to again listen to customers by exposing them to what your potential new ideas are, by actually ideally letting them play with some kind of a simulation of the potential new journey, the new experience, and ask them questions and observe their behavior and see what kind of reaction you get. Listen sounds like it's all audio, but it's also watching them. It's also just observing their emotional responses to really understand how you can, because, in the end, as I often say, business success is mostly about driving customer behavior. It's not only that, but that's a huge portion. If you can get your customers to do what you want them to do, man, you are well on your way to success. And if your customers don't do what you want them to do, then honestly, no matter what else you do that may be excellent in your business, you're probably going out of business. So you really need to make sure you understand those customers so that you can effectively create a vision of transformation that will drive the behavior that you want. And I have often seen companies that embark on a vision of transformation that they came up with in a workshop, at a whiteboard, or the CEO or someone else senior in the company is in love with their own ideas, with the vision that they have. And it's great to have ideas. Don't get me wrong. It's great to have vision. But some ideas sound great in a conference room. They look great on a whiteboard or on a PowerPoint slide, but they just don't work for customers. It's just not what customers want. Or they're 90% right, but they have some kind of fatal flaw that you don't see because you love your idea so much. And so you plow forward with it only to discover it hits the marketplace and is a failure, because sometimes an idea can be 90% right, and that's not enough right to be successful in the marketplace. But as I say, there are many techniques you can use to reduce that risk, and I'm not going to get into all the details of them now. We've talked about them on other shows, and of course, they are detailed in my book. Okay, now I have a surprise for you. I have an extra bonus. I've actually already gave you a bonus at the front because I said before I even got into the 5 that there is the need to even just be clear on what success means. And then I've given you 5 ways to fail at digital transformation. But I'm going to give you one more bonus way, just in case you didn't think this was enough ways to fail. There are a lot of ways you can fail at digital transformation. It's why I want to make sure you see them. So there's one more. All right, I'm going to totally level with you. We already promoted this show as the 5 ways to fail at digital transformation. And then I realized there was at least one more, and I had to talk about it. So instead of changing all of the posters that we printed, we put some billboards up by the highway. Today's episode is 5. No, we didn't do that. But in any case, I just thought I'd add it as a bonus way. So here's your bonus way. So we still have 5 ways, but this is the bonus way. The bonus way to fail at digital transformation, which is move slowly and carefully. First of all, as I've said before, digital transformation is a lot about keeping up with the rate of change in the world. I always say there's the digital transformation of your customer, which is happening whether you like it or not. They're increasingly living a digital lifestyle, which means their needs and expectations are changing. And the digital transformation of a company is about is about adapting, transforming to keep up with the changing needs of your customer. And most companies, many companies, do that too slowly. The rate of change in the world, Jack Welch, the legendary CEO of General Electric, said many years ago, when the speed of change on the outside exceeds the speed of change on the inside, the end is near. And of course, that was before the world became digital, but man, did he understand something. And obviously he was extremely successful. So this is one of the problems a lot of companies have, is that their rate of digital transformation is simply slower than the rate of the digital transformation of the world. And it's like being in a race where you're a little behind, but you're running slower than the runner ahead of you. Well, the longer you run that way, the farther behind you get. And then in addition to that, COVID put like turbo boosters on that runner at the front, right? It made the rate of transformation of the world, the change in our customers, move towards digital even faster, because people were forced to adopt more digital behaviors as a result of the limitations of the COVID pandemic. And now that those digital behaviors have been learned, such as ordering their groceries from Instacart, or increased use of Uber Eats, or increased use of online banking, or whatever it may be, they're unlikely to retreat and go back to where they were before. So you were in a race, possibly running slower than the lead runner, and now the lead runner just started running a lot faster. So speed is essential to success at digital transformation. Otherwise, you're simply doing the right things, but at the wrong pace. And most companies that move too slow, they do it for a couple of reasons, but one of the reasons is very often because they want to get it right. They do it for a positive intention. They say, well, if we move too fast, we could make a mistake. And all I can say to you is the biggest mistake can be to move too slowly. Better to move more rapidly and make some mistakes. Now, don't get me wrong, that doesn't mean you should move recklessly. And as I talked about earlier, there are some things you can do that are mistakes, like not listening to your customers. So you don't want to move so fast. You say, well, we're in such a hurry, we don't have time to listen to our customers. But you can do that rapidly, right? It's about figuring out how do you do the critical things in an accelerated way. And of course, this is the work that I do. This is what we do with clients all the time, every day. Figure out how do we accelerate this whole process so companies can do the things that are essential to success, but do them rapidly. So moving slowly and carefully. While, gosh, it doesn't sound like a bad thing to be careful, but sometimes, that's how you lose the race, right? Of course, we all know that the tortoise won the race. So let's not take my metaphor of the turtle and the hare too far. In that story, the tortoise wins. But in digital transformation, unfortunately, the rabbit who's running fast does not take a break and sleep behind a rock all afternoon. That's not what's happening. I don't think Google's going to take a year off from innovation and just hang out and sleep behind a rock. So the circumstances of the story of the tortoise and the hare are not applicable to digital transformation, notwithstanding my slide. Do not follow that lesson, but instead follow the lesson that you need to move as rapidly as you can. And that means sometimes looking for new ways of doing things, whether that's agile software development or rapid research techniques or other things that are going to enable you to do the things, to do it right, but to do it rapidly, and know that doing it right doesn't necessarily mean in any way, shape, or form doing it perfectly. Because one of the beauties of the digital world is the ability to make changes. I just published a book, as I regularly talk about. Sorry for mentioning it so often. But, and there was something about that book where it's like, once that book was printed, and I think they printed 15,000 of them in the first printing, like if I discovered a problem with that book, like I'd made a spelling error or the cover wasn't good, like I couldn't just go into Photoshop and make a change. Like those 15,000 books are printed on dead trees, sitting in a warehouse, and I don't know how long it's going to take to sell those 15,000 books. We've actually already sold 12,000, which is cool, although a bunch of those are Kindle books, so we haven't sold 12,000 of the hardcover books. In any case, I don't know how long it's going to take to burn through those 15,000 books, but until we do, we can't fix anything. Now, fortunately, I haven't discovered any problems that I'm aware of, but my point is that's not how the world of digital is, right? In the world of digital, you can get something out there, and if there's a problem, there's a feature customers don't like, there's a bug, there's whatever, fine, fix it, change it, push a new release shortly thereafter. So you can have a different mindset. It doesn't have to be so perfect, and that gives you the opportunity for speed. So that was our 5, arguably 6, or even depending on how you count, possibly 7 ways to fail at digital transformation. Hopefully this has been helpful and useful to you to avoid failure in your own digital transformations. Reach out if I can ever be of any help to you. Encourage you to go ahead and check out a copy of my book, Winning Digital Customers. It's on sale for Valentine's Day. Even though Valentine's Day is now over, it's going to be on sale for, I don't know, at least another few days. So check that out on Amazon. And I look forward to seeing you next time on the Winning Digital Customers Show. Have a great day.